Hello everyone, and welcome to my Young and the Restless official 24 channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Kane's epic decline, Michael's redemption? Christian LeBlanc's character Michael Baldwin receives an unexpected offer. It seems likely that Kane Ashby and Amanda Sinclair will come to an agreement. But may Victor Newman provide Michael with the ultimate atonement? Let's discuss the options after you finish reading this. The game of Kane Ashby. Let's start by discussing Kane's ultimate objective. It appears that the tycoon has two plans. One is to gain the children's and Lily Winter's forgiveness. Business comes in second. The businessman says he's returning to put things right, but he's keeping a lot of things from us. Amanda appeared in Genoa City in the Friday, August 29, 2025, episode. The lawyer then questioned why her boss was abruptly abandoning his intentions. Kane then said that he was removing himself from the spotlight and that he would attack when no one was looking. Unexpected present. Next, according to the teaser for the week of September 1st, Michael is presented with an unexpected chance. Kane must be that person. Working with Michael would undoubtedly be a wise and calculated move on Kane's behalf. Michael, after all, is well-versed in Victor's personality and thought process. The most crucial piece of knowledge of all may be understanding Victor's strategy. Michael has counseled me, protected Victor's secrets, and even attempted to rescue the patriarch from himself over the years. But Michael's efforts have never been particularly appreciated by the father. Instead of gratitude, it is typically greeted with punishment. The redemption of Michael Baldwin. According to spoilers for The Young and the Restless, it appears like Kane will propose to Michael. This can place the attorney in a difficult situation. He would still likely stop at nothing to assist Victor, on the one hand. Michael, however, might be open to playing for the opposing squad. But because Michael is so devoted to Victor, I never imagine him betraying him. Indeed, I could envision him portraying Kane in order to obtain the ultimate atonement with Victor. The epic decline of one man? What would it entail for Kane if Michael is ultimately saved? The tycoon will eventually have to decide. It is obvious that the man cannot have both his empire and his family. He might lose everything and everyone if he doesn't decide quickly. Kane Ashby's epic decline is not something that happened overnight, but rather the culmination of years of questionable decisions, buried secrets, and a dangerous tendency to underestimate those around him. And in the latest unfolding storyline of The Young and the Restless, the decline has finally begun to accelerate in a way that makes it impossible for Kane to ignore the consequences of his past. For all his claims that he wants to put things right, that he wants the forgiveness of Lily Winters and their children, the truth is that Kane's motives remain muddied, layered with contradictions and half-truths, because on the one hand, yes, he longs for the warmth of family dinners, the laughter of Charlie and Matty, and the intimacy he once shared with Lily, but on the other hand, his ambition and desperation for financial dominance and power continue to push him into alliances and decisions that threaten to undermine even his most genuine emotional desires. And nowhere is this contradiction more clearly illustrated than in his dealings with Amanda Sinclair, the sharp, perceptive lawyer who has just returned to Genoa City in the Friday, August 29, 2025, episode. Amanda immediately recognizes that Kane is hiding something, questioning why her boss would so abruptly abandon carefully laid intentions. And while Kane brushes off her concerns with cryptic remarks about removing himself from the spotlight only to strike later when no one expects it, Amanda cannot help but see the calculating glint in his eyes, the ruthless edge of a man who is both cornered and determined to fight his way out, even if it means torching every bridge left standing behind him. And Amanda's awareness is key, because in the soap world, lawyers are not just legal advisors but also moral mirrors, and she is positioned as the one who may either become Kane's unlikely partner in chaos or his last chance at someone forcing him to confront the man he has become. Meanwhile, Michael Baldwin is thrown into the center of this storm with an unexpected offer that seems, on the surface, like a golden opportunity but may in truth be a poisoned chalice, because Michael has always been the lawyer with one foot in the shadows and the other trying desperately to stand in the light. Forever straddling the line between his own past sins and his desire to be better, to do better, to redeem himself in the eyes of those who matter, Lauren, Fenmore, his friends, and perhaps most of all, Victor Newman, the man to whom Michael has been both confidant and servant for decades, and yet never fully trusted. never truly appreciated. Michael knows Victor's playbook inside and out. He has spent years anticipating the patriarch's next move, shielding him from scandal, cleaning up his messes, and even attempting to stop Victor when Victor himself was barreling toward self-destruction. But what has that loyalty ever earned him except scorn, dismissal, and punishment disguised as tough love? And so when Cain approaches Michael, suggesting an alliance that could change everything, Michael finds himself at a crossroads that is as dangerous as it is tempting, because Cain's pitch is seductive in its simplicity: join forces, outmaneuver Victor, seize control of the narrative, and, in return, Cain will give Michael not just a seat at the table but also the recognition, power, and independence that Victor has always dangled before him but never allowed him to grasp. Still, Michael is not naive. He knows that Cain is a man spiraling, that Cain's empire is crumbling, that every deal he makes comes with hidden claws, and so the true question becomes whether Michael would truly betray Victor by siding with Cain, or whether he would cleverly play double agent, feeding Cain just enough rope to hang himself while secretly engineering a scenario in which Victor is forced to acknowledge Michael's loyalty and grant him the ultimate atonement. This is where the narrative tension thrives, in the question of whether Michael's redemption lies in breaking free of Victor's shadow by finally stepping out on his own, or whether his redemption lies in orchestrating Cain's downfall in a way that secures Victor's gratitude once and for all. And the beauty of this arc is that either path is plausible. Either outcome could serve as a defining moment in Michael Baldwin's journey from villain to anti-hero to reluctant savior. But for Cain, the consequences are far more dire. Because no matter which way Michael turns, Cain is left increasingly isolated, and the epic decline becomes inevitable as the tycoon realizes that he cannot have both his empire and his family, that trying to balance both will cost him everything, and that unless he makes a definitive choice, he risks losing Lily forever, losing his children's respect, and losing even the remnants of the business empire he clings to so desperately. The writing is on the wall, foreshadowing a collapse that is as tragic as it is compelling, and yet the audience is left to wonder, will Cain recognize the warning signs in time to salvage even a fraction of the life he once had, or is he too far gone, destined to fall as Michael rises? The redemption of one man standing in stark contrast to the decline of another. A poetic parallel that underscores the brutal truth of Genoa City's game. No one stays on top forever, and sometimes, the only way up for one player is for another to go crashing down. Cain Ashby's decline does not simply unfold as a matter of business losses or strained family ties. It transforms into a psychological descent, a dangerous unraveling of a man who once believed he could straddle both the corporate battlefield and the fragile terrain of personal redemption. And as September unfolds in Genoa City, the weight of his duplicity presses harder on every decision, every word, every look he gives to those around him. Amanda Sinclair, sharp-eyed and unwilling to be manipulated, continues pressing Cain about his evasive answers, noticing the restless energy that clings to him like static, the way he is simultaneously haunted and hungry, desperate for validation but unwilling to earn it honestly. And when she confronts him about what he truly intends, Cain lashes out, insisting he will reclaim not only his place in the boardroom but also his role as father and husband, painting himself as a man on a noble mission while privately nursing darker intentions. And Amanda is left unsettled by the contradiction, recognizing that Cain's attack when no one is looking strategy could mean something far more dangerous than a simple business coup. Meanwhile, Michael Baldwin finds himself staring at Cain's offer with the skepticism of a man who has been burned too many times before. The offer dangling before him like a golden key to a door he has always wanted to open yet never trusted himself to walk through. Because Cain promises him freedom, freedom from Victor's thumb, freedom from always being the clean-up man, the lawyer who fixes other people's mistakes without ever shaping destiny himself. But freedom can also mean exile, and Michael is wise enough to know that if he sides with Cain and fails, he will not only lose Victor forever but also risk alienating Lauren, his family, and the fragile redemption he has worked so hard to earn. What Cain underestimates, however, is Michael's intelligence, his ability to play both sides of the board simultaneously. And as Michael pretends to lean into Cain's proposition, asking questions, weighing the terms, giving just enough hesitation to seem torn, he begins quietly sketching his own plan, one that could allow him to feed Victor information while appearing to entertain Cain's alliance. And in doing so, Michael positions himself as both traitor and savior, leaving the ultimate judgment of his actions to Victor. The man whose opinion has always mattered most even when it wounded him. Victor, of course, is not blind. And though Cain believes he is operating in secrecy, Victor has long cultivated an ability to sense shifting loyalties before they are ever spoken aloud. And it is not long before he begins suspecting that Cain is circling like a vulture, preparing to strike from the shadows, and that Michael is caught somewhere in the middle of this impending storm. Instead of confronting them directly, Victor decides to stage a test, to draw out their true allegiances not through words but through circumstance, manipulating events so that both Cain and Michael are forced into choices where hesitation could cost them everything. And this test becomes the unseen framework beneath the weak storyline. A chess match in which Victor moves pawns that look like people and maneuvers knights that are really careers, marriages, and reputations, while Cain mistakenly believes he is the one with the upper hand. In truth, Cain is already unraveling. His attempts to reach out to Lily fall flat as she reads the insincerity behind his apologies. His promises to the children ring hollow because they remember too clearly the betrayals of the past. And even as he tries to project strength, whispers of failed deals, unpaid debts, and abandoned partnerships spread across the business community, eroding the confidence others once had in him. And this mounting pressure fuels his paranoia, making him more volatile, more reckless, and more inclined to gamble on risky plays. Like drawing Michael Baldwin into his scheme, Amanda watches this descent with a mix of professional duty and human concern. Torn between cutting ties with a sinking ship and staying to ensure Cain does not destroy more lives as he crashes, and though she challenges him, she also realizes that Cain is less a master strategist than a man grasping at control in a world where everything is slipping through his fingers. Michael, on the other hand, embraces the duplicity with a steady hand, aware that every move he makes could be misread but choosing to take the risk because he knows the reward could be transformative. The chance to finally secure Victor's respect not by blind loyalty but by cunning, by proving that he can anticipate danger and neutralize it even when it comes from within Victor's own circle. And as Michael weighs his options, he cannot help but reflect on his own long journey. From the manipulative lawyer who once used the law as a weapon for personal gain, to the man who fought for legitimacy, love, and stability, and now stands once again on the edge of temptation, the irony not lost on him. That his path to redemption may require a dance with betrayal. The tension builds as whispers of Cain's plan begin to leak, whether through Amanda's quiet warnings or Victor's unseen surveillance, and the possibility emerges that Cain's attack when no one is looking may backfire spectacularly, not because he underestimated Michael but because he underestimated Victor, who is already tightening the noose. Cain convinces himself that by securing Michael he has found the missing piece to his puzzle, the insider who can crack Victor's impenetrable defenses, but what he does not see is Michael's subtle maneuvering, the way Michael feeds him just enough to keep him invested while secretly guiding him toward a trap. And by the time Cain begins to sense that something is wrong, it may already be too late, his decline sealed not by an overt takedown but by the quiet collapse of every foundation he thought he had secured. In this way, the story transforms into a haunting parallel, Cain's desperation for control contrasted with Michael's quiet search for redemption, one man spiraling downward into ruin while the other claws his way toward the light by proving he can resist the very darkness Cain has embraced. And as September plays out, audiences are left with the question that lingers long after the credits roll. Can Cain salvage even a shred of dignity before he loses everything? Or will his epic decline serve as the very catalyst for Michael Baldwin's ultimate redemption in Victor Newman's eyes, a redemption that comes not through loyalty alone but through intelligence, patience, and the ability to let another man's downfall illuminate his own path back to the light. Cain Ashby's epic decline grows more dramatic with each passing day in Genoa City, because what began as a man quietly plotting in the shadows has now turned into a public unraveling that no amount of charm, business bravado, or carefully chosen words can disguise. And the more he tries to tighten his grip on control, the faster it seems to slip away from him, like sand through his fingers. In his desperation, he leans harder into Michael Baldwin, convinced that securing Michael's expertise and insider knowledge of Victor Newman will give him the edge he needs. But Cain misreads the situation badly, failing to grasp that Michael is no longer the man who once thrived on schemes, shortcuts, and manipulation, but rather a man who has lived long enough, stumbled hard enough, and learned painfully enough that true redemption doesn't come from destroying others. It comes from saving them. And as Michael entertains Cain's propositions, nodding at his plans, asking questions about timelines and strategies. He is simultaneously reporting back to Victor in subtle, carefully measured ways, never revealing too much at once, but offering just enough to keep Victor ahead of the curve. And Victor, the master strategist, recognizes exactly what Michael is doing, seeing not betrayal but loyalty of the highest form, the kind that risks perception and reputation in order to protect the Newman Empire. And quietly, for perhaps the first time in years, Victor begins to regard Michael not just as a servant, not just as a fixer, but as a genuine ally whose cunning is an asset rather than a liability. Meanwhile, Kane's attempts to win back Lily Winters and the children collapse further, as Lily grows weary of his constant promises without substance, telling him bluntly that words mean nothing anymore, that she cannot ask Charlie and Matty to open their hearts again only to risk being shattered by their father's inevitable disappointments. And this rejection cuts Kane deeply, fueling both his anger and his desperation, because though he tells Amanda Sinclair and others that his pursuit of family and business success are parallel tracks, the truth is that he knows he cannot truly have both, that one must be sacrificed for the other, and yet his pride will not allow him to choose, so he barrels ahead recklessly, convinced he can bend fate itself to his will, not realizing that his refusal to choose is, in fact, the very choice that seals his doom. Amanda, watching all of this unfold, becomes increasingly alarmed at Kane's volatility, because while she was initially drawn to his determination and perhaps even sympathetic to his desire to rebuild, she now sees in him the hallmarks of a man on the edge: erratic decisions, late-night calls, sharp mood swings, and cryptic comments about striking when least expected. And she begins to wonder if staying tied to Kane professionally will damage her reputation and career, forcing her to consider cutting ties before his downfall pulls her into the abyss alongside him. Michael, however, embraces the duplicity with an almost surgical precision, aware that every interaction with Kane is a test not only of Kane's patience but also of Victor's trust, because Victor is watching, always watching, and Michael knows that one misstep could make him look like a traitor rather than a savior. And yet he thrives under this pressure, tapping into the same sharp instincts that once made him feared in the courtroom, only now applying them toward a nobler cause, the protection of a man he once sought to manipulate but has since chosen to defend, not out of fear but out of something closer to respect, even love, though Victor would never call it that. And so the stage is set for an inevitable confrontation, a boiling point where Kane finally makes his move, attempting to strike while no one is looking, only to discover that everyone has been looking all along, that his cloak of secrecy was an illusion. And as Victor calmly dismantles his plan piece by piece, revealing that he knew every step before Kane even took it, Kane is left reeling, humiliated, exposed, and furious. While Michael stands beside Victor, silent but steady, his role clear in the unspoken acknowledgement between them. He chose correctly, he played the long game, and he has earned his redemption, not through Victor's words of praise, because Victor rarely offers them, but through the unmistakable shift in Victor's eyes, the way he regards Michael not as expendable but essential. Kane, meanwhile, spirals further, his empire crumbling, his family out of reach, his alliances shattered, and the tragedy is that even now, he cannot let go of his pride, cannot admit that his downfall was of his own making, instead railing against imagined betrayals and conspiracies, blind to the fact that his obsession with control is what cost him everything. And as he storms away from the wreckage of his latest failed scheme, the audience is left with the image of a man once formidable now reduced to a shell of himself, while Michael Baldwin, long the shadowy lawyer searching for a path to legitimacy, finally stands in the light, not perfect, not pure, but redeemed in the only way that matters, by proving to himself, to Victor, and to Genoa City that loyalty, intelligence, and patience can rewrite even the darkest of legacies, leaving the haunting parallel etched into the storyline. Kane's epic decline is Michael's redemption, two men whose fates crossed in this deadly game, with only one emerging whole. Kane Ashby's spiral does not stop with Victor exposing his plan, because humiliation has always been the spark that ignites Kane's worst impulses, and instead of accepting defeat gracefully, he becomes more reckless, more determined to prove that he is still a force to be feared in Genoa City. In the aftermath of Victor's takedown, Kane retreats to the shadows, obsessing over every misstep, replaying Michael Baldwin's calm presence at Victor's side, and convincing himself that Michael orchestrated the entire collapse as a personal vendetta rather than seeing it as Victor's masterful control. And this paranoia pushes Kane toward a dangerous path, reaching out to old contacts, shady business partners, and even former rivals in the hopes of piecing together an alliance strong enough to mount a comeback. But every door closes on him, every handshake feels tentative, because word spreads fast in Genoa City, and once Victor Newman has marked you as untrustworthy, few are willing to risk the fallout of standing beside you. Meanwhile, Michael continues to navigate his dual role with measured precision, aware that Victor has not only forgiven him for the appearance of entertaining Kane's offer but has also quietly elevated him, granting him access to conversations and confidences that once would have been kept behind closed doors. And while Victor never utters the word redemption, Michael feels it in the weight of responsibility now entrusted to him, in the subtle nods of approval, in the way Victor no longer questions his motives at every turn. For Michael, this is not just validation but liberation, a release from the cycle of suspicion and penance that defined his relationship with Victor for years, and in private moments with Lauren, he admits, carefully, cautiously, that for the first time in a long time, he feels as though he has finally proven his worth not by groveling or covering up mistakes but by anticipating danger and neutralizing it before it could strike. Kane, however, cannot let go, his obsession with both Michael and Victor growing more unhinged as he convinces himself that his only path forward is a bold, public strike that forces everyone to take him seriously again. And he begins to sketch out plans not just for a business maneuver but for a personal reckoning, one that will pit him directly against the two men who have become symbols of everything he has lost, the family he cannot reclaim, the empire he cannot rebuild, the respect he cannot earn. And this sets the stage for a climactic showdown, one in which Kane's epic decline may reach its most destructive point, while Michael Baldwin, standing firm beside Victor Newman, finally embodies the redemption arc that fans have long hoped for, his rise shining all the brighter against the backdrop of Kane's fall, reminding Genoa City that in the endless game of power, loyalty, and betrayal, only those who adapt, evolve, and choose wisely can truly survive.